Bienvenidos. This is, wait, no, sorry. Already screwed it up. So, here we go. You like that? I got really nervous. It's like the lights came on. Okay.
You have to publish that also.
I love it.
Yeah.
Remember, we're going to look up the...
Save.
Actually, you know what we
Save
can do
that.
is do that. Yeah.
Let's see that crap. Okay, there we go. All right. 3. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Bienvenidos a Gut Check Project. Yo soy Eric. Está Dr. Brown. Dr. Brown, ¿cómo estás?
Muy bien, Eric. Gracias. Mira, estoy súper emocionado por el podcast hoy. Tenemos un invitado fantástico. ¿Qué piensas de este podcast hoy?
Silvia, ¿dónde está la biblioteca?
Wait, guys. I can speak English.
Oh.
It's okay.
Oh, thank goodness, because I'm pretty sure that's all the Spanish Eric knew.
El baño. I got that down too.
El baño. So why don't we start over and just take it from the top in English now that we know that our wonderful guest who lives in Spain and we're going to learn all about.
That's right.
Actually speaks English.
Okay.
Probably should have figured that out before we started the podcast.
Guys, I'm going to start all over. So welcome, Gut Check Project fans and KBMD Health family. It's now episode number 49. I'm Eric. This is my awesome co-host, Dr. Kenneth Brown. And today we've got an incredible special guest that I tried. You know what, Ken? I tried Spanish. I tried. You
did. So Eric dusted off his 8th grade Spanish. He was trying to impress Silvia. We're both a little nervous because what we have on the podcast today is super special. Everybody has heroes in their life, and Silvia is my hero because she is a polyphenol expert. She's getting her doctorate in specifically the polyphenols that we use in Atrantil. So she knows more about it than anybody I've ever met, and I'm so excited and nervous that we actually tried to speak in her native language.
I'm just embarrassed, but anyway, Silvia, welcome to the show. Welcome to Gut Check Project. Thank you so much for making time to hang out with us.
Silvia.
Yeah, bienvenidos.
Hi, y'all.
Hello. Oh, she said y'all. She's trying Texan. This is awesome.
She's learned some Texan. Now, first of all, Silvia, get us up to speed. You're living in Granada, Spain. What is going on there? You WhatsApped me. You guys got a little earthquake situation, right?
Yeah. We were with earthquakes, but now we stay better here. Fortunately, the situation is better.
You said it so calm when you just WhatsApp. You're like, oh, things are good here. We're dealing with a lot of earthquakes. Thanks for asking. I'm like, oh, wow, they're tough in Spain. They just kind of roll with the punches.
It's quite normal. It's quite normal here. You just have to be used to.
So this is super cool. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I have followed your work, some of the work that you have done as the lead author. We've discussed it on multiple podcasts. If you've seen episode 47, episode 46, multiple other episodes, we always refer to the large stable polyphenols and how they get broken down by the microbiome. And the articles that I always reference, this is the author of those articles, Silvia Molino, I almost called you doctor, but you're almost a doctor, right?
Almost.
Almost.
In a few months.
Nice.
Hey, Silvia, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, how you ended up there, what's going on, everything about Silvia Molino.
Okay. So I am a biologist. I coursed my master's degree in Italy, but I did my traineeship here in Granada, where we started working with in vitro and digestion and fermentation. Mm-hmm. And I fell in love with this argument. And then in one congress, I met Michele Battaglia, who is the CEO of Silva Team. That is a big company that produced, the world leader at producing tannins that are polyphenols.
Sure.
And he got interested in my work, so we started collaborating, and then we had the idea to create a new project to investigate the application of tannins in humans. And so I just started with my PhD working on that. And I'm still working on that. And we are continuing on that.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So when you first hopped into it, were polyphenols something that drew your interest in their immediate applications for health, or is it something that just happened over time? What was it that drew you into wanting to study about polyphenols?
Well, I always have been interested in polyphenols. Well, more in general about nutraceutical.
Okay.
Because I believe that we could treat some diseases or some dysfunction with natural products, because actually we are using a lot of synthetic treatment, but they were discovered from studying nature. So sometimes I think that we could go back to the power of nature, and in this case, tannins.
Absolutely. Well, honestly, the timing really couldn't be better on where we find ourselves, not just in the United States, but obviously all the way around the world, for us to find and escape from synthetic solutions to what otherwise are just natural problems. And if probably we were consuming more polyphenols as for the entire earth, we would be in better shape.
Yeah. Repeat that.
Okay. Sorry.
Eric was just saying that you're exactly right. We have always we have felt that the consumption of polyphenols is what we're lacking in the Western American diet. If we had more polyphenols, we would have better health. Yeah,
for sure. And
I was just going to say, you use the word nutraceutical, which is interesting, because we've coined that term. But what does nutraceutical mean to you as a scientist?
Well, it's a hard question. For me, a nutraceutical is a solution that could be assumed from a person, by a person, it will be a part of the natural diet, like it will be a food.
Okay.
So something more natural.
Okay.
So a functional food, nutraceutical.
Interesting.
A molecule that can have health benefits, but it's found in nature.
Yeah, exactly.
And so through your research, you found that these beautiful molecules called polyphenols hold all this potential to be bioactive and possibly a nutraceutical for humans. So for anybody that has not heard this, can you explain in your words what a polyphenol is?
Well, polyphenols are molecules that we can find in the nature, obviously. The name derives from the chemical structure, and they are well known for the multiple bioactivities, beneficial bioactivities. First of all, they are antioxidant. They are well-known antioxidants. And this is a super important characteristic of them, because they help us to counteract the action of the oxidative stress. The oxidative stress is a normal event that we have, that happens in our bodies, and can lead to a lot of diseases and a lot of problems.
So leading to like inflammation, is that kind of what you're talking about there with long exposure to oxidative stress?
Well, can you repeat, please?
Sure. Are you saying that oxidative stress leads to inflammation, like more inflammation around tissues? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, for sure. Well, normally our normal metabolism produce free radicals, okay? And it's a normal process of our body. But what happens if we produce a high amount of of these free radicals, and it's normal to sometimes to produce a lot of free radicals, and the causes could be external factors such as stress or bad diet, for example. We have some endogenous mechanism of our body to counteract this production of oxidative stress done by the free radicals, but these are not sufficient, are not enough the most of the times. So we need to intake some help from external help, and in this case we have to take antioxidant. And among antioxidants we can find, for example, polyphenols.
Okay.
Other well-known antioxidants, for example, could be vitamin C, vitamin E. But from our study, for example, we could discover that tannins, among other polyphenols, has exert a higher activity than these well-known molecules, such as vitamin C. So we could, in this case, eat a smaller amount of external compounds and not endogenous helps to have the same effect. So it's so great.
Okay. No, it makes a lot of sense. It's very congruent.
Yeah, it absolutely does. So when we talk about these polyphenols, and you brought up tannins, which is what your research has been in, we know that people that are discussing polyphenols, the molecules that make vegetables colorful, there are different sizes and different characteristics as a researcher that you have figured out. Can you explain the differences in sizes, characteristics, and antioxidant capabilities, just real grossly, and then we'll talk about some of your research, because I think it's so cool getting the foundation like this.
Yeah, among polyphenols, polyphenols are a huge group of molecules. Among them, we can find tannins. And tannins are well known for their characteristic to their capacity to bind and precipitate protein, alkaloids, and carbohydrates, among other molecules. Among tannins, we can have hydrolyzable tannins and condensed tannins. The hydrolyzable tannins are called like that because they are they are hydrolyzable with a lot of facility with weak acids. Among this group, we could find gallotannins and lagitannins, depending on the different structure nucleus that we can find in the compounds. And when we don't have hydrolyzable tannins, we have condensed tannins. These structures are characterized by the presence of proanthocyanidins that can form a big structure, like with building blocks. Just to explain in an easier way. And sometimes we could have also an association between hydrolyzable tannins and condensed tannins. And so we have complex tannins. And the name also explains the complexity of the molecules, because we have, in this case, big molecules. Yeah.
Okay.
So these molecules, the lagitannins, the gallotannins, and the condensed tannins, are characterized by the presence of a lot of hydroxyl groups, and these groups are responsible of the antioxidant, the great antioxidant capacity of tannins. So it's so important.
So let me pause you right there. So you're saying that what makes these polyphenols unique, the polyphenols under the big umbrella, are the large polyphenols, proanthocyanidins, which are in the class of tannins. They have tremendous antioxidant capacity because they have the hydroxyl groups, a bunch of them all around. The hydroxyl group is the OH that you'll see in those chemistry structures. Correct. The OH, they're hydroxyl. So you're saying that the amount of hydroxyl groups is very important to the antioxidant component?
Yeah, totally. and they can exert their antioxidant activity in different way. For example, thanks to the hydroxyl groups, they have the capacity to scavenge the free radicals, but in other cases they could help also our endogenous antioxidant system. For example, they can induce the production of antioxidant enzymes that we can produce.
Like, is that like superoxide dismutase? Is that one of them? The turning on the what is it? What is an example of a endogenous antioxidant enzyme that the tannin turns on?
Well, what I was saying before, what I was explaining before about our endogenous response to the oxidative stress, we produce some antioxidant enzymes.
Okay.
For example, superoxide dismutase or catalase. Okay. So we know that tannins, among other polyphenols, can increase the production of these enzymes, so reducing the oxidative stress in our body.
So it's twofold. It can basically bind to these weak acids as well as make our bodies produce more of the enzymes to help basically combine these free radicals.
They have a multiple action,
well, that's awesome. And I think that once we get to your studies, we're going to find that that's just the tip of the iceberg.
That's just tip of the iceberg. So everybody, so over here, Silvia, there's shows like Dr. Oz, where he's always talking about different diets and they're always talking about different compounds. They rarely discuss it as a polyphenol, but they'll have a show on green tea extract, EGCG, or they'll have a show on resveratrol, or they'll do these different things, but these are all polyphenols. But what people don't understand is this complex science that you're an expert in, which is what I love, because I can sit with my patients and explain to them why these particular polyphenols, whether in diet, we always ask everybody to do it in their diet, or through a supplement, do multiple things. And the tip of the iceberg is the potent antioxidant capabilities of it.
Totally, because the oxidative status then could lead to multiple diseases that could be chronic diseases or chronic inflammation. So in this case, we can counteract a lot of problems at systemic levels or at local level.
Now, the research, when you teamed up with Michele, had you been doing research on these polyphenols, or did you take some of the research that Silva team had done with the animal studies? Because they've been involved with cattle and the wine industry for so many years. Was this a hard step to move from some of that research over to the data that we're going to talk about with your different studies?
Well, they have a great experience with the animals. They are working with animals from 15 years, maybe more or less. But it's true. Try to start working with humans is always different, because the information that we have in animals could help, but is not a reality. It's not a...
Doesn't always translate. Just because it happens in an animal doesn't mean it'll happen in a human.
It's true. I wanted to say that. Okay, thank you. So, well, here I started working with an in vitro system just to study in the small particles, because I wanted to know how these molecules are acting and how they are metabolized. Because there are a lot of literature about tannins, but there's still a big lack about the information, because it's totally new, this argument, this issue. So I first started working on the antioxidant activity of different extracts, and then I proceeded to digest and ferment in vitro, just simulating the digestion of the human body, to trying to discover what's happening in our body when we intake tannins.
So I'm sorry.
No.
Well, how long have you been then working with Michele and Silva team then? Because what I'm curious about is, since you've started doing your research and kind of what your observation is, or how you've seen the world's view possibly change or be influenced by powerful studies regarding polyphenols and their benefits with health. What have you seen while you've been working with Michele, and are people more receptive to that idea?
Well, I started 6 years ago.
Okay.
And when I started, I have to be clear, I didn't know anything about tannins. I knew just the tannins about wine because I love wine. I'm Italian. So it was a total discovery for me. From my studies, I think that we discovered a new product that could resolve a lot of problems. Above all, I think this is a great discovery about the intestine. It is, I think, the solution for all the problem. I don't know, maybe it could be strange to understand, but I discovered a lot of properties of tannins, because fundamentally they have a prebiotic action. So they function like a fiber. They help our digestion. They can modulate the composition of our microbiota, and through that they can regulate our inflammatory status, our oxidative status. So it's perfect.
I think that's so incredible, because what we always hear about is just the antioxidant potential. So here, from a marketing standpoint, a lot of people try and sell supplements. They go, this is an antioxidant. This has the highest antioxidant capacity. What you have discovered in your research is these beautiful large molecules do so much more than that, which you just touched on right there, which is it functions like a prebiotic, meaning that it feeds our own microbiome. And we know that when we have a diverse microbiome, you end up having a healthier body all around. So when I started treating my patients with our combination of the quebracho and chestnut, and we were seeing incredible results, I knew what was happening in the short term when we were getting the bacteria, the bacterial overgrowth. That's why we developed it. But so many of my patients felt better and better while remaining on it. And now I can explain to them, because of your research, what's actually going on. And that's what's so cool. And that's what's so neat, that most of the research that is done, and you know this, are done on smaller phenolic compounds, those ones that we talked about. So they always talk about the same ones over and over: quercetin, resveratrol, curcumin, those. You took a step back and said, wait a minute, let's find out what happens when we look at these larger molecules.
Definitely.
And you used a really cool term, because I'm going to start using this: building blocks. The molecule is just a large building block.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. Before we get into your research, I had to plow through trying to prepare for a paper and a podcast, a really big article called the Immunomodulatory, Anti-Inflammatory, Antioxidant Effects of Polyphenols, a comparative review on the parental compounds and their metabolites. It's like a 50-page article where all they did is show that, no, every time you take one of these polyphenols, it does more and it gets broken down into more things. And it was like really thick. And then I found your article, which... do you have more questions? Because this is what I think one of the coolest things.
One of the things that you said that we've said on the show multiple times is you said the word prebiotic, and that's still not really a commonly used word here, at least in the States. Would you mind, Silvia, kind of explaining what you view is a prebiotic?
Yeah. Normally people knows the term probiotic, and sometimes there's like a mistake between pre and probiotics. So I could explain it. A probiotic is like strange. These are bacteria, normally are beneficial bacteria that we can intake, normally with yogurt or dairy products. A prebiotic is something that is before the bacteria. So it's a substance, for example, fibers that could act on the composition of our microbiota. So we are not going to change the composition of our microbiota by taking some external strain of bacteria, but we're just going to modulate what we have with prebiotic.
Makes sense. So basically, it's almost like the perfect food for the bacteria that we already have, right?
Yeah. It's like exactly. if we give to our microbiota like a good food to grow well.
Right.
What, generally speaking, since you've been doing research on this, over here, probiotics, it's a massive industry, but just recently, a lot of data is coming out that probiotics probably don't do as much as we used to think. Mainly because many of these probiotics that we purchase don't make it to the colon where your microbiome is. Through your research, I'm just curious what your opinion is on probiotics in the use in humans.
Well, okay, if I can. I think that each person has his own microbiota, and each person needs a specific strain of probiotic, and it's so difficult to do that, because normally what we can find in the supermarket is like bifidobacterium or lactobacillus, but it's so general. We don't know if that strain is the right strain for us. In the other way, a prebiotic always is good because it's helping our own microbiota. So we are going to solve the problem for sure. Well, and then there are other technical problems. For example, the probiotics are not so resistant. So sometimes we can intake a product with probiotics, but they don't work so good.
Oh, makes sense.
Yeah, that's we've done a little bit of research on this. My personal belief is that when we look at probiotics, we at least know that certain things like a spore-based probiotic stays in the spore form, and there is clinical data to show that it can make it to the colon, where then it wakes up, and if it's got the prebiotic, like a polyphenol with it, the combination helps both of them improve the microbial diversity, or basically they work together.
Actually, there's a paper that is in publication, so then I can send it to you. I always working with in vitro digestion fermentation. I could demonstrate that the intake of tannins could improve the diversity of the microbiota.
It's perfect.
That is huge.
Well, that's what we're after.
Hey, out of curiosity, this paper, since you've been doing some of that research, is it possible that not only will the tannins improve the diversity, but will it help raise good bacteria and lower the type of bacteria that we know can create problems?
Yeah, we have to know that tannins really are molecules produced, are secondary metabolites from plants. And these metabolites are produced from plants as defense. So these molecules are produced to counteract the action of bad guys, such as bad bacteria, or other external factors. And if we intake tannins, it's happened the same thing. So they are able to detect the bad guys, the bad bacteria, and I don't want to say to kill them, but reduce their amount or
Sure.
their activity. And on the other part, they can increase the activity and the functionality of the good guy or the good bacteria.
That is awesome. Nobody has said that before like that.
No, they haven't. And in fact, it makes perfect sense because it's not like, and Sylvia said this earlier, it's normal for us to have reactive oxygenated species, right? But in small amounts. What do tannins do? They keep us from having too much. So you're saying it's not eliminating all of the quote unquote bad bacteria. It's more or less delivering balance where we need balance.
It's a modulation.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's
It's allowing Mother Nature to do what it wants to. We hinted at it at the beginning of the show, but what happens in the pharmaceutical industry is they go, oh, we want this molecule, let's make a drug out of this tiny molecule, and not taking into account that when you give the body what it wants, it will use what it needs to make sure that it keeps you in balance.
Yeah. I think that the great thing about the extract of I'm working with from Silva team is that they are phytocomplex. We are not working with just one specific molecule. We are working with a group of molecules, so we have multiple action and multiple effect.
Well, so you have a paper on this specifically, and it really, really piqued my interest. And the reason is because you illustrated and then essentially gave the how-to on why a larger parent molecule, which basically would have more of these smaller polyphenols, is actually what your body wants, because simply it begins to pull apart the polyphenols as it needs to use them. Is that right? Is that how, am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, it's correct. And here we can find another super characteristic of tannins, because we can see that they could act at local level in the intestine as big molecule, and these big molecules are the molecules that are going in contact with a good microbiota. But when they are metabolized, they could give form to smaller metabolites, and these smaller metabolites are those responsible of the systemic effects.
Okay.
Because they could pass the intestinal barrier and then exert they function at systemic level in all the organs.
Now, isn't that kind of what you called postbiotics?
So yeah, we're referring to those metabolites as postbiotics. So it's the postbiotic or the metabolites or the breakdown.
The third term.
The third biotic. Absolutely. So can you do me a favor? Can you explain, I don't know if you can see that, but your little summary, the diagram, but this is what's so cool. And this is what separates Silvia from everybody else. She developed this super eloquent model. Can you explain what you did with this? Because it's so neat with the in vitro digestion.
Well, the in vitro digestion and fermentation are two big steps. First of all, we have the digestion. In this case, we are mimicking what's happening in the mouth, in the stomach, and the intestine. We mimic the temperature, pH, enzymatic condition that we could find in the mouth, and then in the stomach, and then in the intestine.
Okay.
Then, what we obtain from the digestion, we take apart and we put it in contact with the good microbiota, with an inoculum, and then we let it fermentate, and then from that we obtain our sample that we are going to study. So from these we could we have a resembling method of the human digestion.
So in your diagram, so cool. You mixed 1-to-1 in the oral phase with salivary fluid, salivary amylase at a certain pH. Then you mixed it in the gastric phase with gastric fluid, pepsin, so a digestive enzyme at a certain pH. And then in the intestinal phase, you mixed it with intestinal fluid, including pancreatic fluids like trypsin and bile. That's fantastic. So all three phases of digestion. Then you separated those and you took one of them and then you fermented it to show what happens in the colon.
Also, this part is very important. It's important to us, and we wrote the paper. I think in a few days will be published in Nature Protocols.
That's incredible. So then you took this fermented. First of all, you took the digestion part, and then you analyzed that, and then you took the fermented part and you analyzed it. When you say analyzed it, what did you do to analyze it?
Well, we could perform every type of analysis. I dedicated my studies about the antioxidant activity of tannins, just to see how can the digestion and then the fermentation could affect the antioxidant activity exerted by tannins. And then I try to understand how these big molecules could be metabolized by our body. So how the structures could be affected by the action of the enzymes, digestive enzymes, and then how these molecules could be affected by the action of the gut microbiota.
Okay. That makes sense. So essentially she was just trying to show what's going to happen all the way through the entire phase of having a polyphenol. Yeah,
which is so cool because nobody has done this yet. Looking at the literature, this is the one thing that I've wanted to see for so long. What happens with these large tannins through digestion and through fermentation? So after fermentation, what did you notice? Like, what did you see when these large building blocks were digested and then fermented?
Well, after digestion, it was a bit surprising that the large molecules, they're still there. But then, after the action of the gut microbiota, we could observe that a lot of small molecules, small metabolites were forming, thanks to the action of the bacteria.
Bacteria, okay.
Yeah. So we could see the formation of smaller molecules, typical from the hydrolyzable tannins or from the condensed tannins. So we could see an increase in the presence of quercetin, AGCG, gallic acid, or ellagic acid.
Well, this is awesome because and not to veer far, but right now, stateside, what people are hearing about on podcasts, trying to find solutions for people maybe who can't get access to a vaccine or they have difficulty because they're overly exposed to public, they're getting lots of guidance on utilizing certain polyphenols like quercetin, et cetera, to function as zinc ionophores. But what I'm hearing you say is that you can actually still get that same quercetin and have your body disassemble a much larger parent molecule or parent polyphenol, and your body will essentially pull apart exactly as much as it needs. Is that right?
Yeah. Can you repeat that?
Did I say, oh no, it's fine. What I'm saying is that what you illustrated in here, you were able to find these metabolites that the bacteria was able to make use of the polyphenol. Yeah. And some of those included the quercetin, which over here stateside now, people are hearing about quercetin and its ability to help people with antiviral activity. And what I'm hearing you say from your research, you can actually get plenty of quercetin by having a larger polyphenol that actually has it inside. Is that right?
Yeah, actually we know that our extracts produced from Silva team are very effective for antiviral activity. And we started with a big clinical trial in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, trying to give a supplement to COVID patients. And we have the first results. We don't have all the results, but we have the first results about that. And we could observe at first that the patients supplemented with tannins beside the typical therapy registered a decrease of the inflammatory status. We registered a decrease of, for example, of some indicators like TNF-alpha.
It sounds very familiar, doesn't it, Ken?
Very, very, very familiar. Silvia, what's really interesting is that this is the first time that anybody has discussed the fact that over here there's lots of supplements. And the supplements are, oh, get this green tea extract. Oh, get this ellagic acid, which will help produce urolithin. Get this quercetin. And so I have so many patients that have 20 different bottles in front of them. And they're doing this. And then when we realize that, no, once again, that's almost a smaller version of what the pharmaceutical companies are doing. It's like, oh, this molecule was studied here, so I'm going to go buy that molecule. But when you give the large, stable molecule, Mother Nature's secret weapon, then your microbiome will kick off these smaller molecules like this quercetin. Now, something that's interesting, I did reference that first study that was really thick. What they did is they did mass spec on these different polyphenolic compounds, including resveratrol, including quercetin, and including turmeric. And what they showed is those are poorly absorbed, and they end up having to be broken down also. So it isn't like taking the smaller molecule is a shortcut. It still has to go. The beauty of using a large tannin like this is the prebiotic effect, which improves the microbial spectrum. And then the broader the microbial spectrum, the more of these beneficial, smaller phenolic compounds you're going to get.
100%. And this is...
There's like a bidirectional relationship between tannins and microbiota, because tannins in some way we could say that feed the microbiota as prebiotic, but in the other way, the fed microbiota is going to metabolize them, generating the metabolites.
A bidirectional relationship. The tannins and the microbiota.
Yeah,
makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. They need each other.
Yeah. Frequently, I think of tannins and the microbiome like the bidirectional relationship that Eric and I have in our friendship.
Yeah.
I need him. He needs me.
If it weren't for him bringing in GI patients, I would just be putting people to sleep for nothing.
Yeah, they would just go to sleep and nobody would do a colonoscopy on them or anything. This is what's so cool about this is, can you just explain really quick, just so that people don't take your word for it? You ended up doing some pretty cool chemistry to determine what molecules were there. So what did you do when you did the fermented, how you were able to show that quercetin was kicked off, that urolithin was kicked off, that EGCG was kicked off?
Well, I had to perform before an extraction of the polyphenols. And when I had the sample, I performed an analysis in a UPLC-MS, that is a huge instrument that allow us to identify exactly every single molecules.
So they're detectable. So she had definitive proof that they were there. That's awesome.
Right there. I'm looking at her mass spec pictures right there.
Yeah.
You've got it in the article.
It's mass spectrometry. Yeah.
Yes. I love that. That's the thing that I think is going to be the biggest game changer. Understanding that through your science, really, you can get these other beneficial products through one parent molecule, the building block. And that's what I try to tell my patients. Like, why don't we take the largest, most stable tannins, put them together, and then as you take that will not only feed your microbiome, but you'll also produce these other things. And then the metabolites, the other metabolites like, short chain fatty acids.
Yeah, because we don't have only just the metabolites deriving from the ruptures of the big structures, we also have the other secondary metabolites that derives from the action of microbiota. We know from my researches and from other scientific literatures that tannins could induce good microbiota to produce short-chain fatty acids. These small molecules are so important for us because they exert a lot of activities. They could be absorbed, and their main activity is an anti-inflammatory effect, but also they are super important for the past-minute term maintenance of the cells for the well-being living of the cells. Yeah.
I mean, we're basically on about item number 17 on why polyphenols daily are critically important. And Silvia put it in here in a paper that anybody can read. I mean, this is awesome.
100%. When you did this article, this is the thing I've been trying to explain to patients for so long, and you showed it very eloquently here. You also have another published study, which is pretty eloquent in itself. And this one is a little bit more related to the thing that we're both very passionate about, which is the brain-gut axis.
Yeah.
My goal as a physician eventually is to make it so that we protect the brains of people. We know that inflammation results in all kinds of different diseases. And you actually published a paper as the lead author, Polyphenols in Dementia, from molecular basis to clinical trials. How did you decide to do a review article on dementia? That's really cool, because that's right in our wheelhouse also.
Definitely.
Well, at that moment, I was working in a lab in Italy. They were specialized in dementia, and they wanted to publish something about that, and they proposed me to write a paper. And I think that I had inside already the love for polyphenols. At that moment, I was working with polyphenols of grapefruit.
Oh, grapefruit. Okay.
So, yeah. So I started searching something, and then I just decided that's it, dementia and polyphenols. I started to find a lot of so interesting literature, and then I could find also clinical trials. So I decided to construct the paper from the molecular basis to explain exact what's happening at molecular level until to the clinical trials, what happens in the patients.
Well, it's a powerful piece, because essentially you're outlining that somebody who has had dementia has probably had long exposures to inflammation. And then in the paper, you're essentially showing how, or why, I guess, polyphenols are critical.
So,
Yeah.
in this particular paper, you were looking at the literature. So this was a review. So the literature that was available looked at those different molecules that we're already talking about, resveratrol, curcumin, and things. And I have to, I love how you address this head on. You said that the bioavailability of curcumin, turmeric, which everybody talks about all the time, is very low because it is poorly absorbed and rapidly metabolized and eliminated. Here, one study, talked about this. You go in to describe how resveratrol has very low bioavailability. Everything that you're talking about is exactly what this other article did, where it showed that even these smaller phenolic compounds do that. So we know that there's evidence to show that this could help in dementia. How does it help in dementia, though? So when in your review, how did you figure out that it helped to prevent dementia or assist those people with dementia?
Well, the mechanisms are always the same. First of all, we have the antioxidant activity and the anti-inflammatory activity. What I can say now, after some years, I could say that it could be related also to the modulation of the microbiota, because we know that almost 70% of the immune system is in the intestine.
Okay.
So by regulating the microbiota, by maintaining a good status in the intestine and reducing the inflammation there, we could then regulate also the inflammation all over the body, and also reducing for sure the inflammation that can lead to dementia. So everything is related.
So she used some pretty common terms that you and I have talked about quite a bit.
Right.
Something about ONF kappa beta.
Yeah.
CRP, lipopolysaccharides, cyclooxygenase pathway. So that definitely summarizes. Do we have this thing? Open that up real quick. Look, Silvia, this is what Eric and I did last time. That's all about inflammation and polyphenols and where they help.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Who was the artist?
So I drew first, and then we realized how bad it was. So we found a young child, a kindergartner, walking down the street who did better than I did. So we paid them to do this. So it's done by some kindergartners.
It was another one of those bi-directional relationship things.
Bi-directional relationship. So this is so exciting. Here's why. You're doing research. You have shown that the cause of dementia is actually due to inflammation, which we talk about all the time.
All the time.
Disease is inflammation. Cause of cancer is inflammation. We have, I have a lot of friends that participate in a lot of combat sports. I have a lot of friends that are former football players. So I have this whole community of people that have had traumatic brain injuries, which I think could really benefit from stuff like this. We know that because of the diet, people have a pro-inflammatory diet.
Correct.
And, you know, when we look at this, the group of people that I treat a lot are people that have intestinal inflammation through bacterial overgrowth, poor diet. One of the most common things that they talk about, or if I ask them, is brain fog or fatigue or anxiety.
Yeah.
And now we know
For
that.
this reason, I found in literature, I can send it to you, 2 interesting papers talking about some products that have been developed with tannins for the fatigue, for the mental fatigue.
Oh.
They couldn't explain why, but I guess that we could do it.
But I mean, but isn't that something though? They probably stumbled upon it, not really knowing. And quite honestly, it's your review and some of your other research that's starting to show people the why, which is critically important. Why does someone want to do what it is that we're doing with polyphenols? And Silvia's honestly paving the way on the why. It's very powerful.
We all have heroes. Silvia, you're my hero. You are proving the things that we have been I've been trying to explain to my patients. And then now I can go, no, I'll refer to you to this article. This is why. This is also why I think it's important to have a good diet, but also the long-term strategy of the longer that you allow your body to access these tannins,
Definitely,
the more your microbial diversity, the more you will block the inflammatory cascade.
Yeah.
Well, and inflammation long-term is not an overnight thing. So in order to repair our bodies, you need to consume healthy polyphenols for a long period of time. And then your body gets used to having the tools that it needs to provide your body with the short chain fatty acids or the urolithins or the quercetins, et cetera, for you to repair and control inflammation. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, Silvia. So I did clinic this morning, and I have a series of patients, and I told them, I said, don't worry, I'm having one of the smartest scientists in the entire world on the show today. And this is an interesting thing because of your research. I think we can help some of these people. I have a series of patients that have had their colons taken out for various diseases, either for whatever reason, they have no colon. So now they have no microbiome. So now, in fact, I had a patient, my last patient said something really interesting to me. she loved taking Atrantil. She said she'd never felt better. And then due to some adverse events, she has an ileostomy so that she's not connected to her colon. And she said today, she's like, I don't get it. I'm not feeling as good as I used to. And I'm like, I do, because we're not breaking these down. We're not fermenting them in the way that they should be.
Yeah.
So my task to you, how do we develop something for people that do not have the capability of fermenting foods, tannins, prebiotics, to have these beneficial, to have all this opportunity to decrease the inflammatory cascade? What pops in your mind of how we can figure something out for these people that don't have access to the microbiome? Am I saying that right?
Well, just to understand your question, you are meaning don't have access to microbiome in the sense they don't have a good microbiota, or?
No, they have had their colons removed completely.
The colons are removed.
No, yeah, so no large intestine.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of our
Okay.
prior guests, Angie, she said, you got to figure this out with, I'm going to call you Dr. Sylvia, because you're almost there.
Yeah, you're really close.
Almost.
Yeah.
You can call me almost doctor.
Bueno, casi doctora Silvia. Dígame una cosa. Casi doctora. That's almost doctor.
I'm catching up.
No, but it's something with your research. It shows that people with a colon will have a more beneficial response to prebiotics and to these polyphenols. So is it possible that fermenting them first and then giving that as an absorbable?
This could be a possibility. We could, the product should be developed, but it's okay. We could do it in laboratory. The name of this product are postbiotic, as we were saying before.
Sure.
So we could generate directly the metabolites from tannins, from the big structures in laboratory by fermenting them with a good microbiota outside the body, and then give to the patient the postbiotic, so all the fermented metabolites.
It'd be interesting to at least try, because if without having the colon, you have to kind of wonder though if the passage is quite the same when it comes to only having a small bowel, if that makes sense.
It's extremely complex, and we're seeing it more and more. And so I'm just wondering how, figuring something like this is it's a small community.
I can't hear you anymore.
Oh.
Oops. That's
There we
because
go.
I was on mute. I'm sorry. Well, I was just saying that it is a small community, but people that it's insult to injury. If you have a disease, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, a severe dysmotility, whatever, and you have your colon taken out, that's hard enough.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
then from then on, how do you make sure that you are able to produce these metabolites which decrease your inflammatory pathway?
Sure. And you need them systemically.
Yeah. It's just something that I dealt with this morning. And I said, I have the person that has the answer. How long do you think it'll take you to develop this product and then get it back to me so that I can start helping my patients? I told him about a week. Yeah. Because casi doctora Silvia can do anything.
As soon as I finish my thesis, I can start with the project.
There you go. Yeah, nothing to it. Nothing to it at all. Well,
this is exciting. This is super cool.
Yeah.
Silvia, your research is incredible. I think that you're just getting warmed up. I think that you have shined a light in an area that many of us can start looking at and start talking about in a very scientific way. And it isn't just, go out and buy this marketing product over here. we want to educate people through science, and that's what you're doing over here. So
100%. And I just think it's so cool that you were able to, where people are already turning to polyphenols, and we mentioned ECGC and quercetin before, and we've all been trying to compete on how do we get our body to use these nice, awesome polyphenol molecules. And really, you just took a step back and said, guys, you really want this bigger one, because by using this bigger polyphenol, your body is actually going to get a better bioavailability of everything that you think that you need. And it's awesome. And it put it into practice. And quite honestly, this is a theme that we've seen before, over and over and over again, where we try to give women who are in need of folic acid, and they put folic acid in a little pill, so that while they're pregnant, that they don't have, some birth defects. But the truth is, your body wants folate, not necessarily folic acid. Exactly. So once again, it's the bigger molecule that is natural that your body wants. And what you did is you just basically took that same science and just blasted it into polyphenols. I think it's awesome.
We're gonna get you hooked up. We had a meeting with the author of the CERT diet, which in your article, you actually describe how these polyphenols will turn on the sirtuin pathway as well. And so that is a whole nother aspect of almost an epigenetic process that goes on with it. But the other really cool thing is you talked about how these polyphenols increase nitric oxide. Both Eric and I like to exercise, so we take our polyphenols for the nitric oxide capability. So, all right. Casi Doctora Silvia, does Michele let you do anything? What do you like to do for fun when you're not always working on your thesis?
Well, repeat it. You talked too. You were faster.
That's because I'm speaking Spanglish. Casi Doctora Silvia.
Yeah. You have to choose, or Spanish or English.
I want to know, does other than working on your thesis and working for Michele, what do you like to do for fun?
Well, this is my fun. Working is my fun. Well, in my free time, I'm an athlete. I'm a triathlete.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Are you taking your polyphenols while you train and recover?
Well, I'm working on it to develop new supplements with tannins.
Look at that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are so useful for sporty people, because for sports that requires a lot of exercise, like triathlon, for example, the body is always stressed, and the development of oxidative stress and inflammation is huge. So we are used to take just supplements with carbohydrates or proteins. They are giving us just macronutrients, but they are not thinking about micronutrients or polyphenols, some molecules that could help us to reduce the fatigue and to help us to recovery.
What's the most challenging event that you've done in a triathlon? Have you done like an Ironman or?
No, I'm for the short distances.
Well, you can fit those in a little bit quicker too. I understand.
Well, I come from athleticism. Before when I was young, I was a sprinter. So for me, an Olympic distance of triathlon is just like a marathon now.
Okay, nice.
Well, I think that your research is really important, because Eric tried doing some triathlons also, and he understood the power of polyphenols, but the only one that he had read about was resveratrol. So he was drinking wine the entire time that he was doing the triathlon.
Yeah, I don't remember any of it.
In the before to cycle, it's not so good.
Yeah, well, I don't remember any of it, so it's okay.
Well, Silvia, thank you so much for joining the Gut Check Project. This is exactly what I wanted to talk about. You did an incredible job. Your research is amazing, and I feel like you're just getting warmed up. I feel like she's going to continue to uncover a lot of different things.
Yeah, what an awesome show to have you join us. And for all the viewers of Gut Check Project, like normal, we will put Silvia's research in the show notes so that if you would like to see her own articles yourself or some of the others that Ken referenced, that way you know that we're not just speaking. It's there's lots of powerful information in here. And I just can't thank you enough, Silvia, for making time to hop on with us today. It's been awesome.
And if you're listening to this, as always, share this with people. It's super important information. This is an incredible opportunity to have somebody like Silvia on explaining this intricate science. So if you know somebody that has intestinal health problems, if the autoimmune problems, inflammation, possibly risking dementia, things like that, this is really important stuff that they all need to hear.
Definitely. Or if you think that you're in the market for trying some type of new polyphenol like quercetin, or you're going to green tea to get ECGC, maybe just reconsider, re-listen to this particular episode. And I think that we can help you with Atrantil find a much better, larger polyphenol that, believe it or not, Silvia here has researched thoroughly. She knows it very, very well. So
Silvia, can we be a sponsor for your next triathlon? Atrantil, just give her the whole logos everywhere. And
I think that the corporate office is going to love the fact that you've already committed. So I guess we're in.
Well, I'm working for my new uniform, so we can talk about it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think we're a little mistaken. When I mean sponsor, the only sponsors we get are people that actually get tattoos.
Yeah. Yeah. He wants to give you a tattoo of Atrantil. It's kind of a permanent sponsorship.
Permanent? I don't know. But temporary, yes.
That's awesome. Silvia,
Well, that's
thank you
awesome.
so much. Hey, don't hang up yet, but everyone else, thank y'all so much for joining Gut Check Project number 49. And like I said, we'll make everything available. Do you have anything else to add for everybody else?
No, I'm just loving it. Loving it. Everything I thought it would be.
All right. Thank y'all very much. Silvia, don't go anywhere.
Bye-bye.